All right, let's very quickly do a SmackDown recap.
Yep.
You know what, guys? Interesting thing about this Raw is that a lot of the stuff that happened on this SmackDown we saw like in another way, shape, or form on this Raw. We saw the highlights of Mark Henry defeating Rusev in an international arm wrestling competition. He won the first time, then there was a rematch, but then Lana threw powder in Henry's face and Rusev got the win. See, this is personally why I don't like the pro-American versus anti-American angles, because it always eventually devolves into segments like this, and I just
where
never
the
really...
anti-American gets painted as this horrible cheat, and the pro-American looks like the good guy coming out of the other end.
Well, yeah, that, and they do it in hokey ways like this, like an arm wrestling contest. I mean, I get it, because again, world's strongest man, and then Rusev's a behemoth in his own right, but still. And then this is the program that got the main event segment on Raw, which I will say, like, that's a double-edged sword, because on one hand, it's something different, and it's a diversification of the presentation of the television product. Like, it's a mid-card segment getting a main event. I think there are times when that can be very refreshing and be quite welcoming. I just don't know if this was the angle to do that, but I guess we'll talk more about that later when we actually get to it. So yeah, there was that. Dolph Ziggler and R-Truth defeating The Miz and Damien Mizdow. I mean, we got that on Raw. So, this is another case of Raw taken from SmackDown and just these shows feeding off of each other in one form or another.
Yeah.
Chris Jericho and Roman Reigns defeating Randy Orton and Seth Rollins. Jericho actually pinned Orton in this match because they're having a match at Night of Champions, which, I mean, does make sense to me. But at the same time, I mean, it seems like Randy Orton was so heavily into Reigns that I'm even surprised that Jericho is working Night of Champions, because what happened on the Raw before this one just really made it seem like Jericho was done. So I'm surprised he's working this match. But Jericho and Orton should have a good match, so it's whatever.
Can we take a second to establish something real quick?
Sure.
Okay. So we had on SmackDown the Usos, Mark Henry, and Big Show defeating Rowan and Harper and Gold Star. Babyfaces over. Bo Dallas defeated Justin Gabriel. That's a heel win. Paige defeated Summer Rae. Technically a heel win, I guess. But then you have Mark Henry over Rusev, because obviously Rusev cheated, so Mark Henry wins by DQ. Ziggler and Truth over Miz and Sandow. Jericho and Reigns over Orton and Rollins. And these are all, I mean, obviously other than the Henry Rusev thing, which wasn't even a match. So you know what? Because that wasn't a match, I won't count that. But still, we had 3 clean babyface victories on this show. And then we moved to Raw. And on Raw, John Cena and Brock Lesnar fought, but the way they painted it, they wanted you to believe that John Cena got the upper hand, even though it took a cheap shot to do it, which we'll talk about later. Roman Reigns got a clean win. Big Show did his thing. Mark Henry left the show looking strong. The Zigglers won over the Miz's. The Usos and Sheamus won. Jericho won. Naomi won. And Swagger won. 9 out of 10 altercations that went down on Raw, heels came out, or babyfaces came out on top.
That's crazy.
And if you count the Mark Henry thing, 4 out of 6 babyfaces came out on top on SmackDown. So that's a total of 13 out of 16. Babyfaces have been looking that strong.
Wow. Almost makes you wonder. I mean, depending on how...
All that makes me wonder is when the WWE is going to stop trying to pander to the lowest common denominator to get network buys.
Yeah. I mean, that... I didn't even realize it was that bad. That babyface heavy. Holy crap. But yeah... I mean, I was going to say it makes you wonder, depending on how SmackDown shakes out, if we're going to have a very heel-heavy pay-per-view at Night of Champions, which would seem to make sense. But I don't know, man. It's crazy that many babyfaces came out victorious. It's like the exact opposite. It's almost like the heels are the ones struggling and deserve sympathy at this point with how much they're losing. So,
exactly, dude. That's the WWE. Dude, that has been the WWE's problem forever.
I just, wow.
Literally the only instances I can think of where the WWE did a genuinely good job of booking a babyface so that they were either sympathetic or badass to the point that you had to cheer them were Attitude Era and Daniel Bryan. That's it.
Right.
Even going back to the quote-unquote golden era with Hogan and Savage, those guys beat everyone. Savage was the closest thing to a sympathetic babyface we had. Hogan beat everyone.
That's just another reason why. I mean, reading the biography of ECW, I forget what pay-per-view it was that they had or what special event it was, but they actually went with a heel winning every single match and making that like the narrative, like every hero has fallen.
I like that, because then you can do like the "this is the darkest timeline" kind of thing and make it seem like everything's going downhill. And because then all it takes is for one babyface to win a match. Even if every other match you have the heel win, if that one babyface picks up a win, it's that glimmer of hope that you really need to keep watching. And that's to me, that's how wrestling should be. But WWE is all about just putting their babyfaces over and selling merchandise off of that. So I can't obviously speak on that.
Yeah, it's a shame, because you look at all the babyfaces that got away with victories, and so many of them I think could have benefited so much more from a loss. And when I say that, I'm mainly speaking about Roman Reigns, who I can't even remember the last time he lost a match.
Right.
I mean, legitimately, it really is an effort to try and think of it, because he won this tag match again with Jericho, even though Jericho picked up the pin. And it's so weird seeing Jericho on this kind of a hot streak, because even though he lost to Bray Wyatt, it was still highly competitive. He was still inches away from winning, which was one of, I think, your complaints that I co-signed onto. It wasn't even like, oh, Bray beat Jericho decisively. No, it was an effort. It was a skin-of-your-teeth kind of effort. So Jericho, I can't remember the last time Jericho's been booked this strong, which I guess both has its positives and negatives. And ultimately, I'd call this run, as much as I've enjoyed Jericho's work here, it's kind of a negative, because who's he going to go out out of the door with? Randy Orton. Does Randy Orton really even need to beat a strong Chris Jericho?
Yeah.
I don't think so. So, there's that. I'm really getting tired of hearing about the Wyatt family losing when they still are one of my favorite acts, but they've lost so much momentum. I mean, these were guys that I thought were going to be the next tag team champions and beat the Usos, but after the Usos overcame them the first time, I'm like, well, I think that's just how it's going to go. And when they beat them at 2 out of 3 falls, I even began questioning if the Wyatt family were even going to win the tag team championships ever. I'm sure they still might, but it's going to come a lot later than I originally anticipated. Gold stars, whatever, no real comment on that. Bo Dallas defeating Gabriel while Jack Swagger taunted him. I mean, we got some kind of a resolution between Swagger and Bo, on this Raw, because they had a match, but we'll get to that later. I mean, yeah, just baby faces just really were looking strong, and it's ridiculous. We need stronger heels, and I think you and I have said that quite a few times now, so definitely bears repeating after that statistic.
Yeah.
Damn, man.
Yeah, I mean, who would you say our strongest heel is right now? Probably, well, it can't be Rollins anymore. Can't really be Randy Orton, because he just got pinned by Jericho. It's obviously not Bray Wyatt. Who is it? Who could it possibly be? Rusev! And I think that was proven on Monday when he freaking main evented, for God's sakes.
Yeah, Rusev, and I mean, I guess you couldn't consider Brock Lesnar a heel because so many people just love what he's about.
Right.
But yeah, it's Rusev and it's Lesnar if you really want to be like technical about it and go by WWE thought process. So yeah, Rusev and Lesnar. That's two. That's two. We should have at least
5.
5. Yeah, I was gonna say 4 to 5. 5 definitely. Oh man, what are we doing? All right. Well, anything else you want to say about this SmackDown before we get into the formal Raw review?
Go.